self-care isn't always comfortable. Hey y'all, welcome back to Mac the Maverick, where we talk all things well-rounded womanhood, like self-care. If you're new here, thanks so much for stopping by. And if you're not new here, it's so good to see you. Welcome back. So, if you are subscribed to my channel, you may have seen some community posts from me. One of them was kind of a behind the scenes on what I'm working on next. And so if you caught the context clues in that photo, you know that my next review will be more than likely on Adwoa Beauty. And I'm excited to bring you guys that. But if you're familiar with my style of in-depth review, you know that kind of takes a little while to put together. And I have been traveling the last week, not feeling the greatest at the moment, but I didn't want to go another week without bringing you all something, coming to chat with you, because I miss y'all and I love y'all. So speaking of getting well, let's talk about self-care. So at the time of filming this video, I am 3 days from my 37th birthday. And this time of year, there's always that period of deep reflection. I'm always trying to do kind of my New Year's resolutions and putting my life back together and trying to solve all my problems at once. It's nuts. But one of the things I'm focusing on in this reset period is I really want to get back to self-care and not neglecting my personal wellness. But I've come to realize over the years that some of the way we do self-care isn't really effective, and I wanted to dig into why that is. So this time a couple of years ago, I actually wrote an article for the Mac the Maverick blog called Why Your Self-Care Routine Isn't Working and How to Fix It. So in researching this topic, I got to thinking, because at the time there was this big self-care explosion. When I was a kid, I don't ever remember my mama or my grandmama or my aunts explicitly talking about the topic of self-care or really committing to it. As a matter of fact, in my community, there's a whole phenomenon that guilts people, especially women, sometimes for committing to self-care. It's seen as selfish. So it's kind of refreshing that coming into these 2000s and 2010s and 2020s, that it's becoming more of a topic of conversation and more of a priority. And my generation and the generations behind me have embraced self-care as a normal part of wellness. But there is kind of a downside, if you will, to that phenomenon. A lot of us are committing all this time to self-care and self-improvement, and it's not working. It's like, okay, my generation was probably the first one to really kind of acknowledge you better take them vacation days and those PTO days because they're yours and it's nobody's business what you do with them type deal. But I remember when I would work corporate America, when I was working in corporate America, I would schedule my days and I would take my days, and I would come back and still need another vacation because it didn't give what it was supposed to give to me. So I want to talk about 8 different areas of self-care, how we do them now, why they're not working, and what we can do to do them better. So when I was researching self-care to write this article originally, I came upon an article in Modern Therapy that really approached self-care as a matter of overall health, which is great. We have a tendency to really focus on the physical parts of self-care as well as the mental or psychological parts of self-care. But this article breaks that down into 8 different areas: physical, psychological, emotional, social, professional, environmental, ignore my hands, spiritual and financial self-care. And they have their own definitions, but to steal a term from my husband, I'm gonna give y'all the new chiffon translation, okay? All right, so let's talk physical self-care, which is great. Getting your hair done, your nails did, your facials and massages. I'm about to do mine right now, as a matter of fact, which is great. But if we're not careful, like what happens when that hairdo grows out, or when it's time to get them eyebrows arched, right? Or when your acrylics have grown out and you're overdue for a fill-in, then what? A lot of times we use our physical self-care and our beauty do's as kind of a crutch, and we depend so much on our outward presentation that we forget to concentrate on our presence and how we show up in the world as people, because beauty is only skin deep. So if beauty is only skin deep, it's only natural that our beauty treatments on the surface by themselves might not be getting all the way down to the heart of the matter. So basically you end up looking really, really great on the outside, but it doesn't heal all the hurt and the frustration you got on the inside. It's basically like getting a car and putting, $5,000 worth of rims on the car when you still need a motor, your transmission is out, you need a new starter, you need a new alternator, your battery is dead. You end up looking better on the outside than you do on the inside. So what do we do about it? Definitely go get your hair done and your nails did. But after you leave the shop, get you a good night's rest. Try that exercise class that you've been scared to go to. And I know in my case, I'm gonna be cognizant, or a little more cognizant, of what I eat. Like the last month, I've been a little more committed to getting in the gym on a regular basis because I had fallen off. I'm paying a little more attention to my portion sizes in the meals I eat, working in a little more cardio, trying to reset my sleep schedule. I may not be able to do all that at once, but I'm gonna build in maintenance of my inner body into my routine at the same level of importance and priority as my outer. Y'all get what I'm trying to say. So number 2 is psychological self-care. I'm glad that mental health is becoming more of an open topic. We're not where we need to be, but we're doing a little bit more in that effort to really think about that and get all of us to do the work. Especially in this climate of social media and influence and having comparison thrown in our face like constantly. So what we do is we'll do a one-day unplug from social media, or we'll decide I'm gonna swear off Facebook for Lent, and we unplug and deactivate that profile for about a month. And while we are unplugged, we read a bunch of self-help books about how we can cram more accomplishments into a shorter amount of time. And so when we get done with this period of reset, we go back to doing the same thing we were doing before, and we're more stressed out because we are putting more pressure on ourselves via the self-help books that we just read. So what I'm trying to do, or been trying to do anyway, is unplug from social media for at least a little while every day, because it is so easy to catch yourself scrolling for like an hour or two if you're not careful. Like, you just thumbing through, and then every time you get a couple of seconds that are free, or you sitting at a light scrolling some more. And sitting on social media and stuff like that really does kind of distort your reality. It can distort your sleep. It can upset some of your routines. So trying to unplug instead of just like cold turkey for a long period of time, set time every single day to unplug and detach. A couple years ago, I actually set up my phone to go into sleep mode at 10 p.m. It goes grayscale and my notifications go silent or buzz, so I can't hear them. I still have a horrible habit of scrolling in black and white, laying in the bed, and I can tell when I've done it because I don't sleep well. So I'm committing to not do that anymore. If I can find a place in another room where I can put my phone, or put it far away from the bed where I can just roll over and get it, I think I'll be more successful. Get therapy if you need it. And I'm gonna try to be less hard on myself and really be cognizant of when I'm tapping into perfectionism and being negative in my self-talk. So psychological health, self-care, those are some of the things that I think I know I can do better. Hopefully that will help you as well. Number 3, emotional self-care. This is the area arguably that I struggle with the most and have my whole life, because somewhere along the way I got conditioned to just kind of grin and bear whatever it was, and that prioritizing my own emotional health, especially in the context of my relationships, somehow made me a bad partner, or somehow made me not a good sport. And it's daily work. I'm still working on this, but I'm really trying. I'm trying to learn not to bottle everything up, because that's been my personal response to everything, to the point of unbearable pressure, and that is very not helpful. The other thing that I've noticed in other people is kind of the opposite. Instead of going the extreme peacemaker route, like me, they go the extreme scorched earth, cut everybody off, burn everything down. Anything that disagrees with them, anybody that they have conflict with, is automatically toxic and they got to go. And that's not always healthy either. I do think it is vital to learn to set boundaries. Learn to set boundaries, and in the famous words of an airline stewardess or many other flight attendants, put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. It is important to protect your peace, but the and, not the or, the and is learning to manage conflict in our healthy relationships. That is a form of emotional self-care, not just I'm gonna go and I'm gonna cut everybody off because I'm over it and I don't need it. Sometimes emotional self-care is learning to recognize when your relationships are good, when the conflict is temporary, and when that relationship has more value to you in being in it than being outside of it. I may take that as an aside into another video because I feel like something about that is tugging on me at this moment, but that's all I'm gonna say. You gotta discover some constructive ways to respond to your conflict and your negative situation and practice forgiveness. You don't necessarily have to be buddy-buddy with everybody who has wronged you or anybody that is for real damaging to you in your life. I get that, but always remember that forgiveness is for you. It is for you, and holding on to that bag of bitterness does you more harm than it helps you, which is also a whole nother topic. But that is my take on emotional self-care. Number 4, social self-care. There's 2 different camps on this one too. One camp, you gotta consume your life with activities and people all the time, and those people might not necessarily be good for you. Those activities might not be good for you. Some people are so ingrained with surrounding themselves with a circle that they don't recognize when that circle is preventing them from growing. It's just familiar and it's comfortable, so that's what we do. On the opposite hand, there are a lot of us that isolate ourselves from any kind of meaningful connection, and we avoid being vulnerable because we're like trying to like self-preserve. And that's neither of those camps are 100% healthy and effective forms of social self-care. A better approach to that is to, of course, watch the company you keep. If you have friends that are, first of all, causing you to get involved in stuff that's illegal, stuff that's causing you to damage or risk your health, be it physical or mental or otherwise, people that are always negative, always bringing you down, people that discourage you when you make steps to grow and move forward in your life, just because they're there doesn't mean they're there for you. You can't take everybody with you into the next season of your life as you grow, and you have to recognize that. And for those of us that tend to isolate ourselves, you got to open yourself up to community. You don't have to be ripping and running and doing everything all the time, but you do need to learn to do life in some sort of community. You're gonna need that support. One way to do it on both of those ends is to find ways to give back and to help others. That's a great way to find yourself in circles of people who are going a positive direction and also having some purposeful, meaningful social interaction. Also, on the point of us who isolate ourselves, if you need help, ask for it. Don't suffer by yourself because it's not necessary. There are people out there, even if you haven't met them yet, there are people out there who are committed to your best interest the way you would be committed to theirs. So ask for help if you need it. And on the flip side of that, when you get invited two things. Accept some of them. Don't always say no. Sometimes jump out of your comfort zone and open yourself up to new experiences. Or decline some of those invitations. If you know that it's gonna wear you out, or you're not in a place at that moment to be good company, it's okay to say no. If you know the company you have is not good, and it's gonna be some old, let me find a word, some trickeration, some flim flam, some hateration in the dancery, decline it. It's okay to say no. Number 5, professional self-care. This is one that I never really thought of until I read the Modern Therapy article. But if you think about it, a lot of us spend most of our waking hours on this earth at work. It's probably one of the most important areas that you commit to taking care of yourself consistently. So, in reflecting on professional self-care, we've all noticed how career culture has changed in the past, I will say 30 years. It's not the same in my generation and the generation after us as it was in my parents' generation or my grandparents' generation. With more and more passing time, it's work. You gotta work harder and harder and longer to see any kind of advancement and get to the next level. And that next level is often tied to not just, bragging rights. It's tied to survival in this economy. So people are working a lot harder to try to get some sort of traction, or even just stay where you are and not be fired, whatever the case may be. And I remember going back to my life in corporate America, there was never a time when I couldn't get on the computer if I wanted to at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, 2, 3, and not see where my colleagues were actively awake and working, because that's how much work we had, and that's what they felt they needed to do to get caught up and get ahead. And people feel like they are stressed out and under the gun. We got statistics that are showing this. I'll put a link down below to the American Institute of Stress data on this, but it's actually taking a toll on people's lives, not just their livelihood. So what I would hope we can do to foster more professional self-care, since what we're doing is not working, is to, if you got a job that is overworking you and underpaying you, like a lot of us, I just encourage you to continue to look. Keep that resume sharp, keep that network going, your eyes and your ears peeled, and do something better. The same way that your job will replace you the minute you die, that is, the common adage that they'll post your obituary they'll post your job as soon as your obituary goes live in the paper. Don't be afraid to look at doing something else. Also, wherever you are, try to draw appropriate boundaries for who can contact you, when you can contact you, and how people can contact you. Like, don't be the person that's up and sending emails at 2 a.m. unless that just makes you happy and floats your boat. Don't do that. I have worked from home in some capacity since 2014. I wrote a whole article about that if you are interested. But one thing that helped me in the boundaries department was to make sure that I had a space that I could close. I know a lot of people might have their desk maybe in a shared area, but if you can, put your office behind a door. Even if you got to do it in a closet, just put it somewhere where at the end of the day, you can close the door. If you got to put a partition around that corner of your dining room where you work, do that. Anything that kind of helps you to have some sort of mental separation. I would try to get up and at least go outside. I still do once a day in the morning. Try to go outside, maybe run down the street to the gas station, anywhere once I'm done working for the day, so that I am less inclined to just have that mental cue that something needs to be done. I'm worse about that now that I am freelancing on my own schedule, because I have a tendency to see that there's work out there and I'm like, let me go and do that. But I know that those things work, and I'm gonna try in this new year to recommit myself to a more stable schedule and learn to close this door that's in front of me after a certain time. Number 6, environmental self-care. This was kind of funny because the most common form of self-care for this is doing nothing. The first thing we think of when we say self-care, I'm going to take a day to do nothing. I'm going to take a day, I'm not going to cook. I'm definitely not going to clean. I'm not going to tend to anything dealing with my household, etc., etc. And on the surface, that's great. But our environment affects so much of like just our mental peace. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at a lot of clutter right now and I don't like it. It's tearing my nerves. But when I'm tired and I feel the need to unplug and wind down, first thing I do is try to like shut the ambient noise of my house and everything that needs to be done off, because I don't need that kind of stress and negativity in my life. But what I should be doing in terms of environmental self-care is decluttering. You gotta clean up. You gotta get rid of all the stuff that doesn't spark joy, so that you don't have all of that ambient noise. So y'all, I'm gonna be working on that. I'll probably be sharing a lot of that process with you all. I've already kind of started down the path with some home improvement projects and kind of exploring my new little carpentry hobby that is helping me to build in more places, homes for things in my house and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, do that, and then also carve out some device-free time. It's hard to believe we went from a time where we had like one flow model big back TV in one room that everybody watched, to having a television in every room, a computer that we could either open up our laptop and walk around with, a computer that goes in our pocket everywhere we go. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot. How can I even hear the Lord with all this stuff on? So in terms of environmental self-care, just take the time, whatever it may be, to get rid of a lot of the sensory noise, or quiet it down every now and then. Y'all pray for me as I pray for you on that one. Number 7 is financial self-care. What do we do when we need financial self-care? Retail therapy. The first thing we do is go spend up all our money on everything shiny and new, or whatever we think is going to make us temporarily happy. Or going back to that professional self-care, we work ourselves to death so we can have more stuff. But is that really effective? Like, is it self-care if you running your budget into the ground and you're going to be stressed out later because you spent your bill money on a Birkin bag? I mean, the math ain't mathing, literally. What we should be doing in terms of financial self-care is setting a budget and sticking to it. Start an emergency fund. Work on your debt payoff strategy. I mentioned in the bumper for this video that not all self-care is comfortable. Financial self-care is one of those things that may not always feel good, but it makes your life good in so many ways. Like, you do the hard things first so that you can limit the amount of stress in that area later. So do yourself a favor. If you're not already budgeting, take a stab at it. There are a lot of different resources. I feel like the Organized Money is one. That's one I'm thinking of off the top of my head. Latricia Pugh at Pugh Financial Coaching. That's a good friend of mine. I'll put her link down below, but definitely budgeting, saving money, working on paying down your debt, and really being cognizant of your purchases. Less impulse and more thoughtful spending. Just thank me later. Thank me later. And last but not least, spiritual self-care. So this one, for those of us, especially those of us that are household of faith, is the most important area of self-care, because it's the one that everything else we do in life stems from, if we really lean to the Lord for our understanding, right? So what we tend to do is, when we have some giant problem, or we're in trouble, or we feeling bad, we go to church for an hour on Sunday morning and we leave God there. Yeah. And we tend to seek out those emotional experiences that make us feel good and pad our wounds and salve our soul, but we don't experience any transformation. And those things, again, they have their place, but that's not all spiritual self-care is. This is another area where it's not always comfortable. Sometimes we gotta open ourselves up to making uncomfortable changes. And on a lighter note, or a lighter level, we gotta carve out time to listen to the Lord and really reflect on our gratitude. Like, think about it this way. Your mother carried you in her womb for 9 months, right? And you heard her voice singing to you, talking to you. Once you got out of the womb, I hope we heard our Father's voice just the same way. And so you know her voice from anywhere. I could be a mile away, and if I heard my mother yell for me, I would know her voice, right? And if I was somewhere crying out, "Mama, Mama," she would know my voice from anywhere. Our relationship with God is the same way. Do we take time to get in His Word? Do we carve out time that's sacrosanct to pray and not just ask, but listen? Most of us don't do that. And admittedly, I've not been great about it. Like, I used to have a much more organized prayer and study life But as I've gotten married, my life has gotten busier and all of this kind of stuff, I have a tendency for my mind to just go elsewhere, and I don't give myself the opportunity to get still with the Lord as consistently as I would like to. So what I have started doing is building in time on the front end of my morning routine. First thing in the morning to pray and to study, and also to journal. It helps me a lot to be able to take notes as I study and really kind of engage and take in the meat of what I'm reading or what I'm hearing from God. And what I'm going to do in this new year is, as I'm reframing my sleep schedule, continuing to do that, kind of mapping out the studies that I'm going to do so I'm more committed to something in particular as I get my footing, and also making my family aware, my friends aware, like, hey, I'm doing this at like 7:30 or whatever time in the morning. So if you need something from me, let it wait until after then, because that's the Lord's time. So those are the 8 areas of self-care according to modern therapy. Why those things and our activities and efforts in those areas don't work sometimes, and some ideas of things that we should be doing and can do to do self-care better. So y'all, I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope that you've been inspired. I hope that you have some ideas to share. I want to hear about it down in the comments. What are your favorite, most effective ways to commit to self-care in your life? Share, share, share. And if you're not subscribed, y'all, please do subscribe. I would love to have you here. Turn on your notification bells so that you can be here for the next video. And also, when it comes to these meatier topics, I am actually going to start making these available as podcasts, so that if you have YouTube video, YouTube music, Spotify podcast, etc., they'll be available for you to listen to as you work, as you jog, whatever you want to do there. So y'all, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about this next review that I'm going to drop for you all. And yeah, I'm really happy and really blessed for the gift of a new year. So that said, yeah, I'm going to drop the actual article that I wrote down in the description bar if you would like to see that in written form. So yeah, until next time, do what you love what you do, and do what is necessary to be the very best you. And I will see you all very soon for the next one. Bye-bye.